Welcome to our overview of MLA Citations. We hope this tutorial will help you in understanding how the 8th edition of the MLA Handbook formats citations so that you can appropriately reference your research. Here is a brief disclaimer. Please note that your professor has the final word on all style manual requirements for your class. The policy of the University Writing Lab is to refer students to their professor, their course syllabus, and their style manual. Here are some general rules for citations. When in doubt, cite. If you are unsure if a source should be cited, it is always better to be safe than sorry. For every direct quote, you should have about 2 to 4 sentences of explanation to help your reader better understand the quote. Block quotes should be used sparingly. You should only include a quote of this length if you plan to refer back to this specific quote several times throughout the paper. Most often, students use block quotes for exegetical papers or literary analyses, since they are spending a significant portion of their papers dissecting specific quotes from an original text. For MLA in-text citations, you should use the author's name and page number only. You do not need any additional information in the citation. When introducing characters or sources, use only the first and last name, and then for every subsequent quote, simply use the last name. Do not use titles such as Mr. or Mrs. to introduce characters or sources. For every citation, it is important to reference the author and the page number of the source. For short quotes, which is about 4 lines or less of prose, you will use a parenthetical citation. Periods for these citations will always be placed outside of the parentheses. There are 3 ways to structure a citation. The first is placing a direct quote and then referencing the author and page number in parentheses. For example, quote, "It was the best of times, comma, it was the worst of times," quote, open parentheses, Dickens, 45, end parentheses, period. Note that the period is on the outside of the parentheses after the citation. The second example uses a direct quote but introduces it with the author's name. Charles Dickens writes, comma, quote, "It was the best of times, comma, it was the worst of times," end quote, open parentheses, 45, closed parentheses, period. The third example paraphrases the quote and thus needs a citation. Charles Dickens notes the moment as being simultaneously incredible and terrible, open parentheses, 45, end parentheses, period. Note that because the author's name was mentioned in the paraphrase, it did not need to be cited in the parentheses. However, if the author's name was not mentioned within the sentence, it should then be included in the parentheses along with a page number. Exclamation points and question marks are placed inside of the quotation marks. For example, Philip asks, comma, quote, "Understandest what thou readest?" Question mark, quotation mark, open parentheses, King James Version, comma, Acts 8:30, close parentheses, period. The period would still be after the parentheses, but because the question mark goes with the quote, we keep it before the quotation marks. Block quotes are long quotes that exceed 4 or more lines of text and are formatted differently than short quotes. All lines of the quote must be indented 1/2 inch from the left-hand side of the page. The ending punctuation comes before the in-text citation, which differs from the requirements for short quotes. Since the quote is entirely indented from the left, there should not be any quotation marks around the quoted section. Also, be sure to accurately reproduce the original punctuation within the quoted passage. Here's what a block quote looks like in an MLA paper. Notice how the extra indentation makes the quote stand out. This is why you do not need to put any quotation marks around the quoted passage. When citing the Bible, you need to include the version or translation, book, chapter, and verse within the citation. Make sure to spell out and italicize the version or translation when you first cite the Bible. If you are using the same version or translation throughout your paper, you do not need to write out or abbreviate it in subsequent citations. The book titles should be abbreviated. For example, use REV period for the Book of Revelations. When formatting the chapter and verse, MLA separates them with a period instead of a colon. Here's an example of citing the Bible in an MLA paper. Notice that the first citation includes the italicized version of the Bible, but the second citation does not. That indicates to the reader that it is the same version. You would only need to include the version or translation name again if you are switching to a new version or translation. At the end of your paper, you will need to include a full list of every source that you cited throughout the paper. This is called the Works Cited page and provides all relevant publication information to help readers locate the research sources you used throughout the paper. All entries follow the same formula using this template. This is the template used to create every Works Cited entry. Containers indicate different levels of the template. Contributors typically indicate editors or translators. Versions refer to editions, whereas number indicates volume or issue numbers. Also, location does not refer to the place of publication, but rather where the information is located, such as URLs or page numbers. Follow the numbers on the template and provide the relevant information if you have it. Notice the template also provides the punctuation used between entries. If the source does not have any information for that category, simply skip that category on the template and continue on. When the source being documented forms a part of a larger whole, the larger whole can be thought of as a container that holds the source. Think of these containers like Russian nesting dolls. Let's use an online journal article as an example. An online journal article is part of a volume that is then published in an online database. Therefore, the title of the article is the title of the source. The journal name would go under Container 1, Title of Container, and then the database name becomes the title of Container 2. If you need more assistance with MLA style, the Regent Writing Lab recommends that you visit our website for more helpful information and handouts regarding MLA style. Thank you for viewing our video tutorial on MLA citations and for making the most of your Regent experience.